One of the best places in the world to catch a glimpse of the last ice age, with giant mammoths and other ice age mammals, is the Brea Tar Pits in Los Angeles, California. This museum is a must-see if you're coming to Los Angeles, especially if you're interested in natural history. You're gonna see mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, dire wolves, and giant bear, among other incredible creatures. We're gonna learn how did they live, why did they die here, and why were they so big? All of that coming up right now. Join me, Toby Nomad, as we explore the Brea Tar Pits and Museum. Before we jump into number one, I'm going to give you the absolute fastest history of the Earth so I can set the stage for the place that these incredible creatures lived. So the Earth formed about 4.5 billion years ago, with life first emerging in the oceans. Dinosaurs dominated for over 150 million years until an asteroid likely wiped them out about 66 million years ago. This paved the way for the Age of Mammals. By the Ice Age, around 50,000 years ago, giant mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and dire wolves, among others, roamed North America, right where I'm standing today. At the Brea Tar Pits, these creatures got trapped in sticky asphalt, preserving their bones. Eventually, early humans arrived. They also got to witness the last of these megafauna before they vanished forever. And then, of course, eventually, Americans arrived in California, and we ended up finding the bones of these incredible creatures, all right here. So the first wonder here at the Brea Tar Pits are the pits themselves. So this site is divided up into the outdoor part with the actual tar pits still in existence and the awesome museum inside. Starting with the outdoor part, you can actually see this part without even paying to go in the museum. You see huge pits of tar, and the main one has a recreated kind of scene going on with some mammoths getting stuck. But let's talk about what these pits are. The largest one, you are standing 1,000 feet above an oil field. The oil oozes all the way up to the ground level naturally. Animals and bits of plants get stuck. The animals die, and they all succumb to the goo, according to the museum. Brea Tar has trapped millions of living things for thousands of years, and it's preserved everything. It's preserved the bones, wood, and shell almost perfectly. So it's like a museum that was created itself by nature. So what is this tar? Well, at the Brea Tar Pits, the tar is kind of a nickname. It's actually asphalt, which is the lowest grade of crude oil. Asphalt is left over after crude oil's lighter elements like kerosene evaporate. It really stinks. It smells like rotten egg, and that odor is from hydrogen sulfide, and that forms from the natural breakdown of hydrocarbon molecules that are in the crude oil. You can also see bubbles, and most of those bubbles are made up of methane gas. It's a colorless and odorless gas, and some of it is also that hydrogen sulfide, that smelly, egg-smelling gas. Methane forms with crude oil when marine organisms break down due to heat and pressure. So at one time, this was ocean. So what happens is that the oil is about 1,000 feet below the surface in this part of Los Angeles. But pressure forces the oil upward, and that's when those lighter elements evaporate and you're left with tar pits. Sometimes it looks more like a kind of a tarry, swampy, grassy area, and the reason it looks maybe a little bit more like a pit here is because people actually mined the tar for quite a long time. So this goes all the way back to the native peoples of the area, the Chumash and the Tongva peoples who lived here in Southern California. They actually used the tar, the asphalt, for waterproofing canoes, baskets, and tools. And in the 1800s, settlers began commercially mining the tar for use in roofing, paving, and other industrial purposes. And they would dig these shallow pits to kind of extract it. And they had always noticed some bones. People had always noticed bones, but more bones started to turn up the more they extracted this tar. At first, they just thought it was bones of regular animals, maybe cow or animals that they knew. But in about 1901, there was a guy named W.W. Orcutt. He took a scientific interest. He realized that they were extinct Ice Age animals. And eventually, in 1913, the Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History began formal excavations. And that's why we have such a fantastic museum that we're about to go into. But before we do that, let me explain to you these animals that you see stuck in the tar. They do a really good job of explaining it. So the sculpture here shows a mammoth family, and in this mammoth family, there's the male that's standing, there's a baby, and then there's the female that becomes trapped. And then they have another column that says what the science actually tells us. Well, scientists believe that Columbian mammoths lived in female-led herds, and that the adult males would live apart, except for the mating season. Asian elephants, the closest living relatives, live this way now. So that means that this scene is actually inaccurate compared to what modern science tells us. The male wouldn't have been living with a family in a nuclear family unit like we think of mom, dad, and child in the human world. So the sculpture here shows that the female has wandered into the lake. She's kind of knee deep, and it's presumed that she went in there to drink. And then the sticky tar concealed by several feet of water kind of traps her there. But evidence from here, the Brea Tar Pits, indicate that mammoths didn't even have to wander into the lake to become stuck. Only just a couple inches would have taken the massive beasts down. In the sculpture, you see the female, and she's kind of like trumpeting in terror, they call it, while the male seems to stand helplessly on the shore. But the truth is that most Columbian mammoths trapped at La Brea were males, not females, and that's probably because they lived alone. They didn't have any companions to yank them out of the tar. All right, so let's go to the first wonder that you see inside the museum. Once you enter, as soon as you go past the admission desk and go to the left, you're hit with a breathtaking sight. These are the tusks of a Columbian mammoth. They are enormous and they are curved. Remember that curved shape. This curved shape is one of the distinctions between the mammoths and the mastodons, which also roamed North America at the same time. So we'll learn more about that later. But first, let's just absorb and be in awe of these mammoth tusks that were actually found right here in the La Brea Tar Pits. So the Columbian mammoth could actually grow up to 13 feet tall at the shoulder. The shoulder, okay? The tusks alone could reach 16 feet in length, and they were used for defense, combat, and possibly also for display in mating rituals. Imagine how sexy those big, curly tusks would be. So notice again that spiral shape. It's from the natural growth pattern, adding strength. The tusks were a dramatic welcome to the museum. I really love it. They remind you that you are smack dab in the middle of the Ice Age. Let's go to the next wonder. So the next wonder is Harlan's ground sloth. So Harlan's ground sloth were about 1,500 pounds and over 9 feet in length. It was considered a medium-sized ground sloth. The largest species of ground sloth could actually reach nearly 20 feet in length. According to the museum, the sloth's powerful arms and claws may have been used to dig roots and tubers because they were herbivores. They were also prey. The claws could also be used for self-protection. The living relatives of these ancient giants, according to the museum, include armadillos and the smaller tree sloths that you see today if you go to places like Costa Rica. Fun fact, their bones often show healed injuries, meaning they survived very tough encounters. They were likely solitary and not particularly fast, hence the name sloth. They were easy prey if they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The next wonder is the incredible American mastodon, Mammoth americanum. 2 million to 10,000 years ago. One of the incredible megafauna that were found right here many times over in the La Brea Tar Pits. Let's get a close-up. So this here is a recreation of the American mastodon, basically what we were calling mammoths, that got stuck in the La Brea Tar Pits and made this La Brea Tar Pits famous. The American mastodon, it's actually called Mammoth americanum. They're saying they're shorter, stockier than their cousins, but they actually lasted longer than the mammoths of Europe. So the American mastodons were around longer, and they would have covered the entire area pretty much of the continental United States. So they mainly lived in forested areas, but ones that would have open meadows, it says here, eating tree leaves, bark, and shrubby plants. So get a good look at this big vegetarian. So when you think of Los Angeles, you don't think of mastodons, but maybe you should. Next, we get to check out one of the coolest parts of this museum. Here, the creators here in the museum made an interactive exhibit where you can pretend you're a mammoth and see how hard it would be to pull yourself out of this tar. It's really cool. So tell us what you're doing here. What are you doing?
Trying to get out of the tar. Wow.
Are they all the same, or are some harder than others?
I think they're probably the same. But of course, if you really were stuck, you'd have to do that and then with the other
Yeah,
feet.
right. So down here they have tar. Oh my gosh, this is a really cool exhibit. So remember, at the La Brea Tar Pits, which is actually is asphalt, which is the lowest form of crude oil after the kerosene has evaporated, they would be it actually probably wouldn't have looked like lakes, it would have looked more like swamps. And animals would have crawled in and they would have been stuck. And so this exhibit, you get to, oh, that's cool. Well, this exhibit, you get to kind of feel what it's like pulling yourself out of the tar. Like this one would be like a smaller limb. Oh, I can't even do this one. And this is like this would be like a big fat mammoth leg. And so you wouldn't get that out of there. It's funny though, like the bottom part, as you pull it out, it's harder, and then as you get to the top, it's a little easier. So like, I could see how you just like, finally like, oh, I got out of the tar. And the one exhibit over there was actually explaining that, yeah, this is a heavy one. Oh my gosh. The exhibit was explaining that it was actually mostly male mastodons that would have gotten stuck in the tar here at the La Brea Tar Pits. La Brea, by the way, means tar in Spanish. It was mostly males because they would live alone. The herd was mostly female dominated, so the males would live alone, and we found more male remains in the tar pits, they think, because the males were by themselves and had no one to rescue them. Sounds kind of like today, right? A lot of parallels between Pleistocene Los Angeles and 2023 Los Angeles. Oh, but I can get this one with one hand. This one, no. This one, no. It's kind of fun though. Like you want to kind of play in the goop. The next wonder here is one of the smaller exhibits. It's just a little diorama, but it shows you that people interacted with these tar pits too. And shockingly, they actually used them for meat storage. It's really interesting to see the human creativity and how it interacts with the natural environment. The indigenous people used the sticky tar not just as a preservation tool, but also to waterproof their baskets. So this diorama is really cool. One thing to note, which I found very fascinating, is that the tar is naturally antimicrobial and cool. So it's like an ancient form of refrigeration that also disinfects. This just shows how people made use of the environment in such creative and positive ways. The next wonder, the extinct camel, really surprised me that it existed here in California. They were here as early as 45 million years ago and didn't go extinct until the Ice Age. They were a little bit different from some of the other kinds of camels in the world. These camels only had one hump, and they actually had a little bit broader feet so that they could deal with the different kinds of climate, maybe mud or even snow. These camels lived right alongside mammoths and saber-toothed cats. I just find it absolutely fascinating to imagine this kind of outdoor California zoo, almost like a later version of Jurassic Park right here in California near the Tar Pits. I had no idea that there were camels in California, but they have found 36 camels at the Brea Tar Pits. So you think you know a little bit about the history of the city that you live in, but camels? The next wonder here at the Brea Tar Pits Museum is the California Sabertooth, an absolute fan favorite and with really good reason. I love the Latin name for this animal, Smilodon fatalis, like I'm smiling at you and I'm gonna kill you. This is one of the most iconic finds here. Over 2,000 of them were found in the Brea Tar Pits. The most distinct feature, of course, are the unique, massive canines, which were up to 7 inches long. They were not for bone crushing like we see in some modern cats. They were for precision strikes. So they describe really in an interesting way what's going on with this saber-toothed tiger. So the saber-toothed tiger needed to have these kind of fangs like this because the way that they killed their prey was different than the way that lions do nowadays. Today, a modern lion usually goes for the throat, right? But it's explaining here that you couldn't go to the mammoth throat. You couldn't get their throat because it was too thick. The muscles were too thick. So the saber-toothed lions would have to drag them down and then use their sabers to puncture basically their belly so that they would bleed out. And then they would leave them there to basically die of their wounds before they come back and eat them, because if they ate them right away, the rest of the mammoths would all come around and try to attack the lion. So I had never really thought about that before, but that's one of the reasons why certain animals have those kind of adaptations, like those saber-toothed teeth, because the mammals that they were hunting were so big and thick that they couldn't rip their throats. They had to puncture them. Which is also weird because if you check out my last video, you see that I almost got stabbed on the subway here in Los Angeles by like a puncturing knife. Putting all that together. Flashbacks. Anyway, they do a great job of explaining all this here at the Brea Tar Pits Museum. The next wonder, the next megafauna animal from the Ice Age that they have here at this museum is, in my opinion, the absolute star of the show. It is the Columbian mammoth. So the Latin name, Mammoths columbi. They lived from 1.5 million to just 11,000 years ago in North and Central America. That means that they overlapped with the humans that came across the Bering Strait from Asia. They were different than woolly mammoths that are very popular and more well known. The woolly mammoths were farther north. The Columbian mammoths had a larger range and extended further south. There were no woolly mammoths here in California, but there were Columbian mammoths. The Columbian mammoths did not have the thick fur of the woolly mammoths. They looked a little bit more, in that sense, like modern-day elephants. But they were massive. They were huge. They stood up to 14 feet tall and weighed over 22,000 pounds. This means that they were taller than the woolly mammoth, bigger than either form of modern elephant as well. They were bigger than the African elephant is today. So imagine being one of those early humans in North America and seeing these magnificent beasts. Now you get to see it. The full skeleton here in the Brea Tar Pits Museum, as well as the recreated life-size animal. This is the Columbian mammoth, and they also lived in North America. They were bigger than the mammoths in Europe. Beautiful recreation here. I mean, imagine hunting this. You couldn't even reach the tusks until it came down to like scoop you up. huge, huge, huge. Some Columbian mammoths, it says here, 13 to 14 feet tall at the shoulder. So that's not even how high their head and trunk and tusks would go up. So I really have to kind of compliment this museum on creating such a great replica. So we're here on a Friday. It's not very crowded. It's really a pleasant experience, I would say. They've done a great job with this Columbian mammoth because you can see the fine grains of the hairs, how the tusk attaches. It's very realistic. I mean, not even in a zoo can you walk around an elephant, right? Like, to really get a sense of their scale. That's one of the cool things about natural history museums or places like the Brea Tar Pits, which is an extension of the Los Angeles County Natural History Museum. It's like, it is cool to see animals live, but it's also cool to see animals, especially extinct animals, really close, how they would have been. Now, imagine if you were a human hunting this. Like, you can imagine that here. Like, trying to stab a spear up in there, or I don't know if they had bows and arrows yet, or chopping at it. Like, wow. That would have definitely been a visceral, surreal experience. Sometimes you think, like, I can't believe so many people are so excited about football and all these sports. Well, for thousands of years, that was probably like the main male experience was like, ah! It's in the DNA. I don't have a desire to do that myself, but I like how the tusks crisscross. I don't know the function of that. It's kind of fascinating, but again, it's really cool how they have the exhibit. You can see the bones in one exhibit. You can see the fully recreated Columbian mammoth in the other exhibit. Again, I don't know, the shoulder blades to me are just like, they're as big as my body. The femur and the tibia. I like being able to see the teeth there. I have a question for you. Are any of these the actual bones, or are they the replicas?
Now, you want the truth?
Yes.
They are not replicas. They are actual bones.
Really?
Let me explain. Let's take this guy. There is something that is a replica on him or her or whatever, and it's the two
Tusks?
because when they were taken out of the ground, they're in pieces. They couldn't get one that was together enough to be able to hang it.
They've been broken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything else is real.
Everything else is real. Okay. So the pelvis bone, the shoulder blade, those are from the Brea Tar Pits. Wow. And the same thing with the camel and the bison?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, the first thing to know about that is anything that you see a barrier or in glass, it's real because you can't touch it. I can't touch it either.
Okay.
And,
so if you see a barrier or glass, it's actual bones.
Actual bones.
So they found like all the little vertebrae of the coccyx and the tail and everything? These are really full skeletons then.
But they're not together.
Okay.
Here's what happens.
Yeah, separates
so
it.
It may take just in order to get this wonderful fossil together, we may take 8 different
excavations
mammoths.
or 8 different mammoths.
Yeah,
Okay.
Look, here's 2 in this and here's this.
But would they all have been from Brea Tar Pits here, or would some be from other parts of the United States?
They can't be. Everything's here.
Everything's from here. So whether or not this was pieced together from 8 mammoths or 9 or 10, they were mammoths that were here. Wow, that's fascinating.
That is the big guy.
The sloth.
This is the sloth
Oh, okay.
right here.
The sloth paw. So is this an actual sloth paw, or is this something for kids to touch?
You can touch it all you like. This is a replica.
This
Why
is a
it
replica of the sloth paw.
And it's
Huge.
heavy.
Yeah, wow.
It's heavy.
So we had the 2 kinds of large elephant-like creatures here in Southern California at the Brea Tar Pits during the Pleistocene. The Columbian mammoth and the American mastodon, which you've already seen. Columbian mammoth was larger, but there's another key difference, and it's actually really easy to tell them apart if you look at this key difference, and that is the tusks. The tusks of the Columbian mammoth are these beautiful, almost spiral-shaped tusks, whereas the tusks of the mastodons are not as curved or spiraled inward. And the difference is probably because of how they evolved in terms of what they ate. So the Columbian mammoths mainly lived on open plains, and they were eating mainly grass-level food. So it's speculated that these spiraled, curved tusks actually could serve as a sweeping mechanism, maybe to sweep snow in some places, or to sweep away other things so that they could get to that grass. Whereas the American mastodon lived in forests. And since they lived in forests, they didn't need to sweep the ground. They needed tusks that were a little shorter and higher, maybe for scraping trees and bark, because they mainly ate things like twigs and leaves and things that were a higher tree level. The next awesome animal here at the Brea Tar Pits is the dire wolf. I love that name, dire wolf. Like, you're in dire straits if you meet this huge-ass wolf. The Latin name is Canis dirus. They lived from 250,000 to 9,000 years ago throughout North and South America. They were larger and more robust than modern gray wolves, and they were better adapted at taking down the huge, giant mammals of the time. The fossils suggested that they hunted in packs and cared for injured members of their own. But it was not a lucky situation if you happened to be one of the other mammals trapped in the asphalt here at the Brea Tar Pits, because there were so many dire wolves found here that we know they were regularly feeding on the larger mammals. 4,000 individuals, 4,000 individual dire wolves have been recovered at the Brea Tar Pits, more than any other large predator. I also really love the next awesome animal and knew absolutely nothing about them until I started researching for this video. It's the American lion, possibly the largest cat that ever lived, even bigger than modern-day Siberian tigers. It's kind of like a giant African lion on steroids. Now, compare that to the Smilodon. Remember that saber-toothed cat? It was shorter, but heavily muscled. So the American lion, the Latin name is Panthera atrox. I love that. Watch out for that atrox. They lived a shorter period than the saber-toothed cat. They lived from about 340,000 to 11,000 years ago in North America. So again, they would have overlapped and interacted with modern-day humans. So you'd have had to watch out for saber-toothed cats and lions, both of them. They were up to 25% larger than the modern African lion. There were not very many found here, maybe because they were better at avoiding the pits, but there were some that were found here. Now, for me, it's just interesting to kind of talk a little bit about the difference between the American lion, which was huge, and the saber-toothed cat. The main difference, because they did compete for the same prey, right? So they both they would have eaten bison in some parts of North America. They both would have gone after young mammoths or mastodons primarily, rather than the bigger, strong ones, unless they were weakened in some way, maybe by the tar, struggling for a long time in the tar. They would have also eaten horses. There were horses in America, there were camels, and there were giant ground sloths. So lots of big, meaty dinners. There would probably also would have been a lot of carcass theft going on. If one group of animals killed something, or if it died, it would be fought over by the different animals. So they might have even fought with the saber-toothed cat. But the main difference is in how they killed. So the American lion was a little bit more long-legged and built for speed and endurance. It had a really powerful bite, and its hunting style was chase and overpower. Whereas the saber-toothed cat was a little bit different. It was more stocky, and it was built for ambush and power. So remember, it's like puncture wound, surprise. Whereas this American lion would chase you down, wear you out, overpower you, exhaust you. What a place to live.
Well, this American lion is huge. It says American lion Panthera atrox. American lions resembled modern lions, and genetic research proves that they're closely related. Researchers examined an American lion skeleton found here at the Brea Tar Pits using CT scan, showing that the body would weigh about 900 pounds. American lion, wow. I mean, way smaller teeth than that saber-toothed cat, but just massive. It's as big as me. Compared to me, it's really tall, it's really big.
As we're winding down this list and making our way to the end of the museum, we reach one of my personal favorites. It's the giant Ice Age bear. Arctodus simus lived from 1.5 million to 12,000 years ago, again interacting with modern humans. The Native Americans who had ancestors that were here in North America at that time would have seen these giant Ice Age bears. It's one of my favorite exhibits in here. You don't see the skeleton, but you can see the skull on the other side of the museum. But you see the huge life-size recreation of it. They could stand up to 12 feet tall on hind legs. They were an apex predator and quite possibly the largest carnivore in North America during the Pleistocene. I love looking at this animal. It reminds me of my friend Brandon, who, when he found out that there was such a thing as a giant bear, said, "Oh my God, a giant bear? No way!" Mortified of bears. And it just so thrilled that he did not exist at a time where a bear could stand 12 feet tall and chase your ass down. One of the last wonders here was such a pleasant surprise. This is Luba, the baby woolly mammoth. Absolutely fantastic to see. The most complete mammoth specimen ever discovered. Now, this was discovered in permafrost in Russia, and it was so well preserved that the internal organs were intact. Researchers found milk from her mother, pollen, algae, and even mammoth dung inside her stomach. An absolutely incredible natural history find. Now, this is not the actual Luba. That is in a museum somewhere in Russia. I don't even know if it's able to be seen by the public, and it's in a research institute near where it was found. But here is an exact replica of it, so you can see exactly what they really found in Russia. So take a look at this, a baby woolly mammoth. So we know for sure it's not like a dinosaur where we've never found a baby dinosaur fully formed with its internal organs. These mammoths lived in a more recent time, frozen in permafrost. This is it. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful to look at. Lived about 42,000 years ago on the Yamal Peninsula in northern Russia. A haunting and intimate glimpse into prehistoric life and death. So before we go, I want to talk about the biggest question, the elephant in the room, so to speak. That pun was actually intended. But the biggest question is usually, why were the mammals at this time period in the Earth's history so massive? Or as my friend Brandon, who was scared of the giant bear, says, why on earth were those mammals that big? Oh my God. So let's talk about why they may have evolved to be that huge at that particular time. The first reason, cold climates favor big bodies. It's called Bergmann's rule from the 19th century biologist Carl Bergmann. In colder environments, animals tend to be larger bodied to conserve heat. There's less surface area relative to their volume, which means they lose heat more slowly. The second reason, abundant food means bigger bodies. During the Ice Age, the vast grasslands and the open woodlands, like the Mammoth Steppe, supported tons of grazing animals. And then, of course, the predators, like the saber-toothed cats and the direwolves, evolved larger bodies to be able to hunt these massive meals. The larger herbivores like mammoths, bison, and ground sloths could also take advantage of seasonal abundance, and if they're so huge, they can store a lot of fat for those long winters. Another point, longer lifespans equals fewer predators. Large animals tend to live longer, and they also tend to reproduce more slowly. So during the Ice Age, many of these megafauna species dominated the ecosystem with few threats until humans arrived.
One of the things that I really want to mention that I haven't said before, because I didn't even get it myself, is that there were no woolly mammoths in California. The woolly mammoths were in Europe. The Columbian mammoth that was in California, that would have been found here at the Brea Tar Pits, was actually like a normal, like the elephants that we see today, not woolly, because it was cooler where the woolly mammoths lives, and it was warmer down here in California. So yes, we had Columbian mammoths in California, and we had the American mastodon, but we didn't have woolly mammoths.
So why did they vanish? Why did these giants disappear? Well, the main reason was probably the climate warming after the Ice Age. But another reason was human hunting. Probably hunted a lot of them to extinction. This is a pretty well-supported theory. Remember, humans and these giant Ice Age mammals did overlap for a while, towards the end of the giant mammal's lifespan. That Bering Strait that froze over and allowed humans to come over from Asia, which is, most people believe, how modern humans got to North America, caused that overlap. We don't know exactly now, because the date keeps getting pushed back, how long indigenous people were in North America, having come from Asia, but we do know that they were here at least 12,000 years ago, which means that they overlapped with these giant mammals and very likely hunted some of them a lot and possibly to extinction. There's also a huge loss of habitat that comes along with these different kinds of changes that we've talked about. And remember, the reproductive rates of these animals is very slow. The larger the animal, the slower the reproductive rate. And it's too slow to recover when these massive changes happen. By 10,000 years ago, these giant mammals were all gone. You can only see their remains, places like the Brea Tar Pits. So after being inside that amazing museum, it's fun to go walk around outside again to check out the huge tar pit, the main tar pit, but then you also get to see smaller ones. And one of the cool things is that you realize that this is still an active archaeological site and an active tar pit area. So even just walking around on the grass of places that aren't being excavated, sometimes you can find the sticky goo sticking up, bubbling up out of the ground.
Yeah, this is really cool here. We saw obviously how this is one of the greatest sites in the world as far as how many fossils were found here because of the way they were trapped in the tar. This is how they would have been found. This is a block from one of the pits here. So here at the Brea Tar Pits in California, in Los Angeles, actually most of the outdoor area is completely free. So you can come and you can see what used to be basically a quarry that they were getting the tar, the asphalt out to use, I think, in roads. And when they were doing that, they found all these fossils in it. You can still see the actual pit where they found all these fossils today. And it's really interesting, like the minute you walk in, you smell it. Like it smells like, would you say, like a fresh road, or it smells like what you think of as like tar, a little bit of a sulfur smell. Yeah. So apparently that smell would have drawn the animals to it. Kind of an enticing, interesting smell. So you can't get too close to the pits because you would fall in and get stuck, just like the saber-toothed tiger, just like the saber-toothed tigers and the mammoths. But you can get right up to them. This is the big pit. And you can even see how there still is tar bubbling up. I guess technically it's not tar, technically it's asphalt. But it is basically it's basically oil. It's a form of oil. It's basically the crudest form of oil after elements. I believe kerosene has evaporated. So here, this is more than 50 years old now. They've done a recreation of what they believe might have happened when animals get stuck in the tar. So they have a female that got stuck. The baby is watching on, and so is the male. It turns out later with further research that they found out that this is more of like, what do you call it when we make animals into humans? Anthropomorphizing things. So mainly mammoths, these Columbian mammoths, they're not woolly mammoths, by the way. They don't have the wool because it's not far enough north. But the Columbian mammoths, they would have traveled in female-dominated herds, and the males would have been separate. So it would have been much more likely that that would be a male there, not the female. But it's definitely a dramatic recreation. So let's go take a look at what it more likely would have looked like for the animals. It would have looked like more like grass and then little springs of water, but it was springs of tar. So what's this?
Tar pit in the middle of the grass, out of nowhere. I found oil.
Yeah, so that's like what was going on, right? I mean, the tar was just seeping up. Can you stick something in it?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Something that's not already gonna get your hand all dirty?
Good tripod.
Yeah. So like, there's all these exhibits of the tar, but like right in the middle where it's not even an exhibit, there's a cone covered in tar and like tar bubbling up from the ground that my friend noticed. I almost like stepped in it. So now I'm gonna find something to stick in it. Let's see. Okay, perfect.
You found something.
What?
You found something.
I found something. I thought you said my phone something. I'm like, so okay, a clean piece of cardboard. Ew. Oh, this one doesn't have anything on it either. Someone was sticking it in there. Oh my gosh, how cool. Like, this isn't even supposed to be part of the museum. Look at that. How cool is that? Like, it's not even supposed to be part of the museum. I swear they don't even like probably want me to be doing this, but like inside you can do this thing where you can feel how hard it is to get your arm out of tar, but it's really protected and it's encased. This you can like stick. I'm like sticking the, wow, a stick right in the asphalt. Yeah, so that's oil. Oil comes up and this is just a crude form of oil. Let's put something clean in it. Look at that. Oh man, yeah. You know what the closest thing I can think of as someone who's never, you know, worked in paleontology or construction or anything? For me, the closest thing is taffy. Yeah. Like the taffy that you eat, that's the consistency of it. Wow. Yeah, so imagine you're an animal and it's a bigger pit with tar coming up. Oh, look at that. Like if I push, it just keeps going. Yeah, it doesn't stop. It just keeps going down. Well, okay, there it stops a little bit. No, it keeps going. Look at that. Like it's eating the whole stick and then it bubbles. Yeah, and the more weight I put on it, the further down it goes in. Woo! Okay, I don't want to get tar on me because like, I don't know how to get tar off. I got like a few pieces on me already. Oh shit.
You will be part of this whole Brea Tar Pits now.
Yeah, I got tar on me. That's not like really bad, right?
No, not. It's just hard to get it off.
Ooh.
Damn.
That's kind of like one of the coolest finds of the day.
Right?
The actual tar that fossils got stuck in. Yeah,
It really
making bubbles.
like crazy when you pull it out.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Imagine like how deep this goes.
Right.
I don't even know this.
And how the other holes could have been way bigger.
Even if you just push it like a few inches, not even an inch in, you feel already how sticky it is and
Yeah.
how hard it is. Hard to put it out. And imagine you have really like your foot in there. If I need something to build my house, I just come here. Like I found the hole for this.
Ooh, look at that. Ugh. Can you pull the stick out? No.
Already too deep in.
Yeah, don't get any more on your hand. I don't know, like it could be toxic.
I mean, I know I work in construction. Tar and all is not that toxic. It's of course not good if you're covered in it completely. But if it's just like this bit, it's not a big deal. Feel how yeah. It's kind of, you know, it's a weird feeling. I want to put more in it, but
Yeah. Bye.
oh yeah, if you just, wow, you really feel, even if it's not sticky on top, when I push.
It could be deceptive, huh?
You hear? Yeah. You hear it. You feel it and you hear it.
You hear it? Ooh, shit. Yeah.
You hear the
Yeah,
air.
you can feel it just push.
And then you see here all the tar coming out. Wow. And you really feel how it sticks to your feet.
Yeah, and think about it too, like the weight of a mammoth is so much heavier than us. It would have just gone right
there.
down. Yeah.
How they were saying, then it's your fate is basically sealed as soon
Yeah.
as you are in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is an example which is actually a little bit more realistic of what the pits would have looked like when the animals would have encountered them, because I don't think that this was used for mining asphalt. This was excavated in like 1913, and they found different layers that had different kinds of animals in it because they were from different time periods. And the reason is because tar would bubble up and ooze in different places at different times. So that's why in all these different spots where the tar oozes up, you're going to find one, you might find a mammoth from a certain time period, and then 1,000 years later you'll find some saber-toothed tiger, maybe sometimes from the same time period, but it often can be from different time periods because of the changing geology. See this old tar swamp. So, like, I can definitely smell it. You breathe it in, I kind of like it. I can definitely see how it would be tempting because it's got almost a sweet smell, an interesting smell. It doesn't look deep, it almost looks like a pond. So my animal brain could be thinking like, oh, I want to go drink a nice fresh drink of water. Maybe I haven't had water all day. Maybe also the sweetness would tempt me, but it does not look that deep. So it looks like the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to like put my foot in, and you know, maybe it'll get a little muddy, but then like, I mean, it's actually really sad. I actually get really sad thinking about the mammoths, like,
Imagine,
I mean, how long it takes to die like that.
I mean, exposed to heat and all
Days,
stuff.
right?
Days.
Days, yeah. So it's a cemetery. It's a huge extinct animal cemetery.
You don't even know how much it's still in there.
It smells like death, okay? Smells like death. La Brea Death Pits. Okay, so supposedly they've recreated this tiny little piece of what would have been the natural habitat in the Pleistocene, which is the Ice Age. They say it would have had a lot of shrubs. There might have been grapes, blackberry, dogwood, and alder. I don't see where they have labeled any examples of grape, blackberry, dogwood, or alder, but I do see a lot of different shrubs and lower grasses, which they are saying would have been that kind of environment. And actually, here's a juniper. They did say that there were junipers here at one point during that time period. The common juniper. Didn't they say that? Juniper and redwoods. So in the canyons and in the valleys, they might have had some junipers like that. Yeah, there's probably like a lot of these reeds, grasses, low-lying shrubs. Not the kind of dense forest that you would see in the eastern United States. More of like meadowy, savanna type environments. They have these big crates here, and my friend just noticed, like, we're just walking past and you can see fossils still stuck in the dirt because this is an active paleontological excavation site here, right in the middle of the second largest city in the United States, in one of the biggest cities in the world. Right in the middle, an active archaeological, paleontological excavation site. And right across from me, another huge pit. Who knows what is left to be discovered in there? Way.
Look at this, there are 27 Columbian mammoths fitting in this small pit. That's unbelievable.
27 Columbian mammoths
Up to
in this pit.
5 feet deep.
Oh my God.
It's unbelievable.
How could they even fit in there?
That's a really good question. We need to figure it out. But wow.
And that brings us to the end of our tour of the La Brea Tar Pits here in beautiful Los Angeles, California, where the Ice Age giants met their sticky fate and left behind one of the richest fossil records anywhere on Earth. Thank you for exploring with me today. I'm Toby Nomad. If you liked this video, give me a like by clicking that little button there. Leave a comment and let me know what was your favorite part about this video. Have you been here? Have you been to other similar places with other really cool finds? It's still a relatively small channel. It probably won't always be that way, but right now I read all of my own comments and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. If you want to see similar videos about great museums, whether it's art museums or natural history museums, places like this, check out my Great Museums playlist. And if you want to see another great video about Los Angeles, but not about prehistoric animals, but about life in Los Angeles today, Los Angeles, Paradise or Apocalypse, you can also click here and watch that video to see what it's like on the streets of Los Angeles today, for better or for worse.